down. What's up, everybody? You are tuned into season 2 of the Elks Call presented by Shotgun Sports. My name is Scout, aka the rep from Section X.
And I'm Catherine, aka Do Even Elks.
And today we are joined by Rouge, White, and Blue / the Winnipeg Terminal podcast host. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Joe Pritchard. Joe, thanks for joining us today. We have a lot to talk about.
We sure do. I have a lot of questions about my team being 0-4. I'm not used to this.
And we're used to this, so we have a lot of questions about your team being 0-4, along with our team being 0-4, and maybe even those Hamilton Tiger Cats being 0-4.
We have a sympathetic shoulder for you to cry on, that's for sure.
Good. I could use one.
Yeah.
Well, we were going to ask you how the first 4 weeks of the CFL season has been treating you. We know that side of it. Otherwise, what do you think of this league so far?
It's been fun, beyond the obvious, of course. It's nice when your team wins. But the thing I found about the CFL is that it's so much fun even when your team is struggling, because when I first got into the league, first started going to games, even first started getting to watch on a more regular basis, the Bombers were never all that good. So I'm used to the idea. It's been a while, but I'm used to the idea of looking at the bigger picture. And there's just been so many close games, so many good storylines, and I had a great pick'em week last week. So I mean, things are going well in that regard too, right?
Somebody's winning.
So somebody went 4-0. Unfortunately, we got some teams that are 0-4. So we're going to chat about it in a bit. Joe, we definitely appreciate having you on the show today. We're going to dig in just a moment. But first, we'd like to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. Whether you're watching on our YouTube, Shotgun Sports Network, Facebook or X at the Elks Herd, or if you're listening on TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Edmonton Sports Talk, or wherever you get your podcasts. While we're here, if you could hit the like, subscribe, or favorite button, we would greatly appreciate it. Today's lineup for another stacked show is as follows. We're going to open up with The More You Didn't Know with Joe, where we talk about his life as a CFL fan, podcaster, and of course, big Blue Bombers fan as well. And then we're going to talk about our struggling teams. After that, we're going to have Kathy's Herd Report, where she gives you the latest Edmonton Elks transactions and news. Following that, we'll give you an Edmonton Sports update, and then we'll cap the show with the Fan Forum, where we discuss hot topics surrounding the Elks, the CFL, and the sports world as a whole. Herd Chat. Be sure to blow it up so we can get your comments and your questions onto the show. Let's kick it off with The More You Didn't Know, brought to you by the Winnipeg Terminal. Catch the flight with Mike and Joe every week, talking all things Jets and Bombers on Shotgun Sports Network. Wheels up. So in this segment, we're going to talk to Joe about a number of topics in the CFL realm. Once again, Herd Chat, if you have any questions or comments, get them in there. We see already a couple comments in there by John. Let's get some more in there as well. Let's get this show going. Joe, your build as an American talking CFL football, as billed on the Rouge, White, and Blue podcast. Please tell us how an American in Chippewa Falls becomes one of the biggest CFL fans in the Canadian football atmosphere.
Before I do that, I do need to make mention I'm only the second person from Chippewa Falls to be on your show, which is incredibly weird for me because I'm used to being the first one on all these other shows I've guested on. It's just crazy how that all works out, and that's a long story as how the Winnipeg Terminal got put together. But going way back to the beginning, ESPN in its younger days, before all they did was show talking heads and talk about the NFL and NBA for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, actually used to show other sports. And to fill some of that time, Well, happens to be that the CFL went to the US in 94 and they started showing games pretty frequently. It was a lot of fun to get to know a new league. The Packers happened to be starting to get really good at that point too, so my interest in football was already there. It just kind of fit, and I hopped onto the Baltimore CFL bandwagon before they even had a name. Mostly not because I had any particular knowledge of their players or how good they could be, but I like their uniforms. I mean, that's a start, right? But then after that all went away, I kept checking on message boards, seeing how the Montreal Alouettes were faring, because obviously they came from Baltimore at that point, and started to get involved in message boards. Got an invite from what's now a very close personal friend to come check out Prairie, the way they did football in the prairies. The invite was made mention of, though. It's like, yeah, you can come. However, if you wear green, I'm going to make you sleep in the dumpster. Now, first I thought he was kidding. But knowing him now, I know I would have probably been in that dumpster had I been wearing green. I mean, the Saskatchewan and Green Bay have a lot of similarities as far as their size and their passion for football. So that was kind of what I was looking for. But then it's like, well, I like the other guys in this rivalry more than I like those guys. So, well, I guess that's where I'm at. First game I went to was Labor Day 2006, and knowing how Labor Day tends to go and how it went for like 20 years straight almost. Yeah, my first 3 Bomber games, actually the first 4, because the fourth one I went to that were Bomber games was in Hamilton, so that's another great choice I made. Yeah, I'm used to them losing when I show up. It's only been recently that that's changed.
Oh, painful.
That's pretty cool, though. I mean, and the fact that you're actually going out of your way to travel and see some of these games, just because the interest is there. That's love for football. That's for sure.
That's love for football. I finally completed the loop of all 9 cities in 2022 with a back-to-back in Montreal and Ottawa. So that was great. That was great times. Now I'm trying to now it's side quest time. Now it's, hey, I've been to these cities for Grey Cups, but how about regular season games? How does that atmosphere go too? So
right. And
working on it slowly.
And I mean, you've been a podcaster for a while now with the long-standing Rouge, White, and Blue podcast, and most recently with the Winnipeg Terminal. Did you build these shows around your love for football and just these particular teams? Tell us more about the shows and what led you to create them and talk about them.
So Rouge, White, and Blue, I actually both of the shows I was invited to be the co-host on. Rouge, White, and Blue, my friend Oz Davis, we were getting to know each other a bit in 2015. Didn't realize he was American too until he reached out and said, hey, we should do a podcast together. We're both Americans. Do that. I mean, that's a hook right there, right? How many there's a few others out there now that are American CFL, but we go back almost 10 years now. We started right in the range of the 2015 playoffs, and we've been going pretty steady ever since. The Terminal, funny thing, I know Andrew over the Turf District through the Canadian Football Podcast Network. Mm-hmm. You knew a guy in my hometown before I knew him, and you guys were like tailgating right across from each other. Like, small world, right? So he reaches out to me and says, hey, let's do a Winnipeg show. And I'm like, well, there's only one of those that 2 Americans do, especially from this city. Like, let's do it.
No, so and it's funny how big yet small the world is, right?
Yeah.
That's probably so far been the ultimate small world moment for me. Yeah. There's been a lot of them though, I will say that.
Yeah, it's still weird for me to think about, whenever we talk about the Winnipeg Terminal and I realize who it is that the hosts are, I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah, we're a 9-hour drive from Winnipeg. It's doable.
I was about to ask. I'm pretty sure you guys are like an 8 or a 9 hour drive. So I was off by a year. No, it's amazing, and it's also cool to see that there are actually quite a few American CFL fans now. There's groups that are actually building and they're getting bigger. And even, you take a look at any CFL group, even the Reddit, Reddit is blowing up. I think they're over on 100,000 members or whatever, right? So it's cool to see how big it is getting down there in America. I would say that the CBS deal probably has a little bit to do with that.
Yeah, and I mean,
it helps because they're consistent. They show the games on the weekends, and it's easy now, as long as you have any technological savvy whatsoever, to see the other ones that they don't show.
Right.
So it's from where I came from on that. This is gold. This is fantastic.
Yeah,
totally.
it's available.
And it's all about making more content, getting more CFL content out there. So
it's football.
That's football. Both of these great shows, Rouge, White, and Blue, can be found on the Shotgun Sports Network. Rouge, White, and Blue has already taken number 2 spot on the video stream platform alone.
Cool.
I think probably in listens as well. You have something in the herd
Yes,
here?
I mean, that being said, that we're talking about Americans loving CFL football. We do have a question from John here on the stream. Joe, should the CFL expand to the USA again like they did during the 1994-1995 seasons?
No, absolutely not. As much as I'd love to see a team in my backyard, or maybe a place like St. Louis that is cursing the NFL's name right now, we know how that would play out. Baltimore showed us how that works. Like, even the success has turned into failures because they had so much success that the NFL's like, well, let's go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And then there's the litany of failures too. I mean, Vegas, Shreveport, Sacramento, and San Antonio. I mean, once Labor Day shows up, it's when the CFL season really gets fired up. That's when the rivalries are. College football is in the way. The NFL is in the way. All the fans, there's a hardcore of us that will follow the league all the way through, but there's a lot of U.S. fans that'll go, hey, look, great football, June, July, August. Oh, my college team's back, my NFL team's back. I don't need this until next year.
Yeah,
no, but sorry, I feel like they could have exhibition games in the U.S.
I think they used to, and I think that they should. If you really want to take it to the next level now, get a CFL team in a college stadium. There's so many opportunities to do that, and that's how they used to expand the game back in the day.
Not an expansion of the league, just have exhibition games to bring the CFL to other countries. Exposure. I would like that. I mean, I'm pretty sure even other countries, in South America would really enjoy that as well. So, but when you actually do make it over here, John says that you should definitely come to Edmonton and sit in Section X with Scout and Catherine. So there's definitely a spot there whenever you make it down here for your side quests of coming to regular season games.
And then Ryan Messer said, bring back the Cudas. Shout out to Ryan Messer in the herd chat. And as always, if you want one of those ancient CFL USA expansion jerseys, royalretros.com, use code Shotgun Sports, all caps, no spaces. Okay, so speaking of Grey Cup, let's get back to Grey Cup here. How many Grey Cups have you attended, Joe? And what is it that makes you return for the big game almost every year? Like, lately you've been going as often as you can.
Right. The first time I did it was 2006 because it happened to be in Winnipeg. That was the second CFL game I ever saw live. It just happened to be in the hometown of the guy that ended up being the best man at my wedding, so that works out. Was fun to have that experience. Didn't know a ton about the league at that point. I was just enjoying the atmosphere. Really started to watch the games on a weekly basis around 2014 when the streaming technology finally got good enough so that it wasn't stuttery and breaking up all the time. All of a sudden, this is clear. I can actually watch this. Oh my God. And then straight into hardcore. So didn't make any plans for 2014 because I didn't know I had to. But by 2015, it was okay. We're going on vacation in Niagara Falls. How far is that from Hamilton? That's not that far. We want to go in August. The Bombers are there. Let's do that. And then it was Grey Cup in Winnipeg again. And then all of a sudden, it's just like every year. The only two I've missed since I started going regularly in 2015 were 2017. At that point, my son was about 10 days old, so that wouldn't have been a good move on my part. So I didn't get to see the Classic in the snow, but I had a good reason not to be there. And then 2021, the year they came back from COVID, I actually was trying to make some plans to get to the West Final possibly, but regulations were changing on a pretty weekly basis, and it was just too hard to commit.
Mm-hmm. That's still pretty cool. I mean, I've never been to one. This year is going to be my first one. So
Yeah.
and now that's going to be me every time. Just watch it. I'm going to love it. We're going to end up planning our vacations around. But
I knew how much the league had gotten to me because the second Grey Cup I was ever at, the first night I get there, we go to Spirit of Edmonton, and it happened to be the night the Packers were retiring Favre's jersey. And I'm like, you know what? I think I'd rather be here. And at that point, it's like, okay, I've gone over the deep end at this point, and I'm enjoying it.
Oh, I love it.
Commitment. The commitment.
You gotta love it. But I mean, unfortunately, bringing it to today, neither of our teams will be making the Grey Cup if they continue playing the way that they are. Elks and Bombers both are Owen Four to start the season, which really it is a surprise to all of us here, mostly on your part. I mean, for us, we're kind of used to it. But what's going on with the Bombers, though?
A lot of bad things happening all at the same time. They haven't been healthy from the get-go. Big Hill missed the first game. There's a few other players that were hurt in camp and really did it. Brady Oliveira's been nicked up. I mean, they're reporting him healthy now, but he sat out most of camp, sat out chunks of games, and he's not. Hopefully, he's back to 100%. Hopefully, the precautionary sitting worked out well. Hey, Chris.
You do have it's my Grey Cup Thursday night drinking buddy.
Thursday nights at Spirit are the best nights.
We're going
we'll be
for
there
that.
for the Thursday night. Yes.
Yep, that's kind of just how the whole group has just decided. Thursday night at Spirit, you split off after that, go do your own thing. But like Thursday night is the night to be at Spirit for sure. You have to remind me where I was.
Oh,
everybody's
the Owen Four. The Owen Four. Okay. Well, so injuries. Kenny Lawler goes down week 1. Dalton Schoen goes down the third week. Just the first week was against Montreal, and Montreal steamrolling everybody. The second week was probably the worst game overall I've seen the Bombers play in about 5 years. Out at Ottawa. Ottawa had control of that game. That score actually flattered the Bombers. That was a bad game. And then the injuries just keep spiraling. And the thing the Bombers used to do better than anyone was go into the fourth quarter and say, okay, this is our game now.
Right.
3 straight weeks, they have failed that test, which is a very unusual for them. Even with all the injuries, they're still competitive. But there's problems. The offense is having some issues getting things rolling. The defense is doing what you can ask a defense to do. But the offense isn't getting the job done. And it's really surprising. The play calling feels flatter. There's definitely injuries in the receiving core that are causing the quarterbacks to dial in on targets instead of spreading the ball around, which was how the Bombers have been fantastic on offense for the past 3 or 4 years, is you never knew who was getting the ball. Well, in week 3 and week 4. I'm like, these two guys are the only guys that are getting the ball in the first half. So if I know that, the defense does too.
Right.
So hopefully get some familiarity with the new names. It sounds like Lucky Whitehead might be on the way to Winnipeg, so he may have a little bit of familiarity with Zach Claros, assuming he's healthy. Another problem there. So we'll have to see. It's really time for them to either turn it around or realize that this is a lost season, and I'm hoping it's the former, not the latter.
Yeah.
Well, and the Lucky Whitehead signing, from what I just read, apparently he had some issues with some paperwork. That is sorted out. He is still expected to sign with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So that's going to be some help that you guys are looking for right now in Winnipeg, even though you're in America, but in Winnipeg. But then the other thing too is I'm wondering if that Ottawa Red Blacks game, I'm wondering if that kind of loss against a big expected to win. Let's say with Montreal, you're not necessarily expecting that win if you're the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, but you're going to work really hard for it because you know that that's a great momentum booster to start the season. You really want to start the season off of a good old Grey Cup champs win, right? You defeated them. You kind of kickstart that. You roll forward. With losing to Ottawa, you maybe put a little bit of doubt.
Yeah.
Get a little bit of doubt within that locker room.
Well, even
and there hasn't been that doubt for a long, long time. So it might be, you might have a point there where they're not used to being in the situation where they're looking up in the standings.
Well,
now, they're a veteran group, veteran coaching staff, veteran front office. I have faith that they'll find a way to go, okay, let's steady the ship here and at least let's get to November and then see where we're at. But it's got to change pretty quickly here.
For the sake of us that some of us that are not necessarily keeping up with the changes in Winnipeg and some of the changes in staff or pickups for players, comparing it to last year's team, was there a lot of changes in players that could cause the changes that you're seeing right now in the offense that you hadn't seen in the past 3 years, as you mentioned?
I was actually surprised at how well they were able to keep things together, because when you're on top for as long as you are, you become a target for teams looking to sign free agents away from you. Marcus Hardrick heading to Saskatchewan, that hurt. They didn't re-sign Jeff Gray at left guard, and he didn't re-sign anywhere from what I'm seeing. So a little bit of change on the offensive line, but I haven't seen a lot of problems there. Losing Rasheed Bailey in the receiving core really hurt because he's not the guy that's going to pop out at you on the stat line, but he's the guy that's going to do all the little things right. He's going to make that extra block downfield. He's going to run his route correctly to open up the other receiver that may be the target on the play. He's in Toronto now. Toronto knows what they're doing as far as bringing in talent. They had a lot of talent leave them this past year. And besides the Montreal game, look like they haven't missed a step. So, as far as the defense goes, I think that's where the problems are. Even though the defense is playing decently well, they're lacking a pass rush. Jackson Jeffcoat retired. Ricky Walker went to Calgary and then went home because of personal issues. They didn't fill those gaps very well. From the looks of it, there's not a lot of pass rush there. Both corners are gone, although Tyrell Ford coming back from the NFL really helped. He looked a little bit lost in the first game. After that, looks like he's been there for 10 years. But I think the lack of the pass rush is hurting the team because the Bombers are good at making you pay for your mistakes, but they haven't been able to force as many mistakes as they have in the past, and they've been making them themselves, which is uncharacteristic.
Well, and then the other thing too is they're used to being able to run the ball out or to score their problems away whenever they needed to. And now that you're seeing Brady Oliveira struggling on the run a little bit, and you're seeing obviously more drops, Dalton Schoen now out for the season. That is a
Right.
painful
When you
blow.
have 2 receivers to worry about instead of 5, it's easier to have an extra guy up near the line of scrimmage saying, "Okay, come on. Come run at us."
That's exactly it. So it's interesting, but I would say that you can kind of parallel this stuff a little bit right now to the Edmonton Elks in a bit of a different way.
The culmination of things.
The Winnipeg Blue Bombers are, kind of going one way right now, and they may end up whipping it around. They have a pedigree; they can still do that. You guys aren't going to be Owen forever. Sometimes we felt like we're going to be Owen forever. This season, though, feels a little bit different here in Edmonton. Have you seen any of the Elks games? Do you have any thoughts on the Double E right now?
I've seen enough to know you guys are a lot closer than you were last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just equally frustrating as it's because you definitely see an improvement. And I mean, I think it's a different story, right? When you're so used to your team playing a certain way and everybody has the confidence and everybody has the wins under their belts, and then suddenly there's something that is tipping them the other way, right? It's a little bit different that when your team has been down in the dumps for so long that suddenly they start picking up.
Yeah.
Right. So now it's kind of like a different storyline for us, even though we have the same record right now of 0-4. We can see that improvement. We can see that hope. We can see those changes that that you're close, and it's so close. And whereas with Winnipeg, it's a lot more concerning because it's going the other way.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of veteran talent there that when you're into your mid to late 30s, you're not going to improve physically. You're only going to deteriorate. The mental game might still be there, but sometimes the body doesn't want to respond. But I like what you have. I like the base setup you guys have in Edmonton. It looks like you got a lot of young talent in there. It took a year longer than I thought it would to get to that talent level. But I also like, and this is maybe controversial in Edmonton, but it's something I've been saying since even before the season. I really like having McLeod Bethel Thompson in there to provide a veteran presence, and hopefully, being a good role model for Trey Ford, because Trey Ford has all the talent in the world. We've seen that. He hasn't been able to sit with a quarterback with a pedigree and see how it needs to be done. Having that opportunity, I hope helps, and I hope next year or the year after, when Trey Ford gets a chance, gets his next shot at starting, that experience is going to help instead of being just thrown in and says, "Okay, good luck." It's like, "Okay, you're in, and you know what you need to do now."
Oh, totally.
Yeah, we've said that plenty of times that's definitely, if there was a reason why we're paying MBT so much, it's hopefully so that he can definitely, I mean, obviously you want him to bring some wins, but at the same time is preparing Trey Ford for what may come next. Right, so.
Chris Agar in the herd chat. Louder for those in the back, Joe.
I'm not sure.
And I really hate to preach. I really hate to be preaching patience to the Edmonton fans, because you guys have been more than patient. I can see last year there wasn't much there. The year before there wasn't much there. This year it's starting to come together.
Yeah.
You guys crack the code in the fourth quarter against a team that has been beating you down for years and years and years, and it's going to feel better. The players are going to rally. It's going to happen. It's either this year or next, as far as that team climbing from being where they're at right now to being back in contention.
I can taste it.
Really good chance to get a victory here in the not upcoming, but the Sunday after, in that game against the Ottawa Red Blacks. We'll talk about that in a bit. But,
well, and we know that Hamilton is also going through some tough times right now, as they're also sitting at 0-4. Hamilton actually looks rather similar to even the Elks or the Bombers right now. So what does that say about the league as a whole? Has the league gotten a lot more competitive?
I think it has, and we actually talked about this on Rouge and Blue today, where I feel like the talent level was much more spread out right after COVID. I felt like the Bombers and a few other teams had a lot of talent. We talked about tiers in the league last year. The top 3 teams were always the same. The middle teams were always the same. Montreal changed that narrative by the end of the year, but from week 1 to like week 17, it was, hey, look, Winnipeg, Toronto, BC are on top. The middle is kind of a mushy middle, and at the bottom is, well, Edmonton and Ottawa. This year, it's a lot harder to say that.
Mhm.
Because even the teams that are 0-4 have reasons to be 0-4, except for maybe Hamilton. Like Edmonton is close, but they're not there yet. Winnipeg hasn't figured it out yet for some reason. We don't know, and maybe they won't. But Hamilton's kind of the question mark in my mind, because I feel like they tried to jam to overload their team for the second Grey Cup that they had, and they really haven't changed course since. They just keep trying the same things over and over and over again. Whereas they might have needed to go, okay, let's start over with a new structure. I don't know if they've done that yet. They've made a change at head coach finally, but they may need to clear the decks and take a couple of years at the bottom to figure this out, because they've been treading water since about the third quarter of the 2021 Grey Cup.
Well, and I think the other thing as well is you can't have the Elks and the Red Blacks be your bottom teams forever, really.
No.
Right?
Bound to change.
It's bound to change. Now, what is interesting is these 0-4s look pretty darn similar. It's not like the Blue Bombers are getting blown out. It's not like the Edmonton Elks are getting blown out. And Hamilton is also competitive.
Mhm.
So it's not like these teams are getting absolutely destroyed. I think, if anything, I think Hamilton might actually be the weakest team out of the 3, right?
I mean, even with the Elks, what is it? 17 points throughout all the games.
I think in the last 3, I want to say it was, or at least back to back, it was only 6 points,
Yeah.
3 and 3.
So I mean, definitely, we were seeing last year. We definitely saw some.
We saw.
Harsh.
Well, you knew you were. Yeah, you knew
scores.
you were over by the third quarter.
For sure. But
Third quarter
this
was
year,
over.
I mean, getting so close and seeing, there's not a big gap between the winning team and the losing team, right? A lot of those games are competitive. A lot of those games could have been winnable by either team. So that's definitely something to say about the competitiveness of the league.
Yep.
Yeah, and it also reminds you how hard it is to stay on top when you're on top. Because Winnipeg's been considered a top team since the tail end of 2019, let's be fair. And this is the first time they've had struggles like this since even well before that. I think 2016 they were 1-4, and they made a change from Drew Willie to Matt Nichols. And after that, they started to be a competitive team. And they haven't had a struggle like that since.
Right.
So that's, 8 years of being competitive week in and week out. This is unusual for Winnipeg. So that just shows you how hard, though, it is to stay on top when the margins are so slim.
Exactly. And I mean, even in the case of the Edmonton Elks / Eskimos, the Esks were headed in this kind of losing trajectory no matter what. It didn't matter what you named the team. It didn't matter. It didn't really matter what happened as long as you had that management in place. This team was always going to hit this point, unfortunately. So it is what it is.
We hit that point, that rebuild point.
We're
that
finally
you're
rebounding
about,
at
perhaps
this point.
Hamilton needs at this point. We did that, and now we're at that, point that
everybody's got to hit rock bottom at some point. It's one of those things. Now, Joe, one last CFL question here, I guess. If you could change one thing with how the CFL, one thing about how the CFL operates or markets themselves, what would it be? What would you do if you were president for a day? If you were Randy Ambrosie for a day, what are you changing in the CFL?
That's hard because they're doing so well. The league is so much healthier than when I first got involved, from when I first started seeing games to when I first started becoming a hardcore fan. You can see the trajectory going up and up and up. I mean, there's been asked to be on CTV for as long as I can remember. They're on CTV this year. There's been asked to do more streaming wise and put out more content. Well, they're doing that now. Like, what else can you ask for besides starting to go unrealistic here? I mean, they're doing what they can do right now.
Okay, but what about that punt rule? Let's even stay with the punt rule. Would you change a rule?
Nope. Not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Two reasons. And I talked about this on the Rouge, White, and Blue today, too, because we knew this was going to be a topic of interest. One, the less you're like the league down south, the more you're going to get eyes when you do things like that. What highlights do you think are being shown down here? What are being blasted across the internet? Hey, look at this weird thing the CFL did. They're not going to show a spectacular catch, maybe once or twice if you're lucky. They're going to show that, though. The other thing it does, the punt rule being the way it is it makes defenses not sit back in a 9 defensive back shell. They can't just sit back there in second and 20, put 9 guys in the 10 to 30 yard range and say, okay, good luck, try to throw it. You got to pull one up there and play man up on that running back, especially the one guy in the league that will do that. Nobody else has done this except for Antwi in Montreal. Like, maybe if you see him on the field, figure it out. It gives Montreal a slight advantage because either they're going to get a free first down because you're not paying attention, or there's one less defender back there for Cody Pritchard to have to face.
Exactly.
What do you prefer, 3 downs or 4 downs?
I always like to joke with people that, that's nice. The NFL is great and all, but the CFL is better because they don't need as many downs to get a touchdown.
We were seeing that this weekend. We had the World Junior Championships,
IFAF,
the U20 IFAF, and they're playing with American rules because we have international teams that know American rules, not Canadian rules. And it was, I gotta say that in many ways, I kind of liked the 4th down, like that extra try.
I mean, I grew up with it. I joke about it that, the Canadians are better because they don't need as many downs, but both games are valid. Both games are fun to watch. Yep. I'm not going to say one is better than the other. I like to watch both, and I like the Canadian League being unique that way.
Very true. Very true.
But the joke you guys can make right now is, hey, look, we won because you gave us an extra down than we're used to, right?
On the flip side, what I was going to say is that whenever we're struggling, then we can say that, hey, here's another try. So, I mean, but Scout made this exact same point, right? That it's what makes Canadian rules, Canadian football unique, and that makes... That's a big
point. Like the one single point, the Rouge.
And how much that changes strategy. I mean, the Bombers might not win 2021 if that's not in play.
It's true. Very true.
Very true.
But
and who doesn't love a crazy kick fest back and forth when you're trying to keep that 1 point from happening? Like, sign me up. I will take that any day of the week, even if my team loses on it. It happened. I've seen it happen.
I think we saw that last game, just on the 3rd period, just punting back and forth.
No, but have you seen where kickers right at the end of the game? It's at the very end of the game, and they're kicking back and forth.
No, I have not had the pleasure to see that.
No.
That sounds fun, though.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, you have homework now.
Exactly. You got to highlight.
I mean, the Montreal-Toronto one's the obvious one from way back when, but I remember seeing Ottawa kick it out, too, against Saskatchewan, and got themselves an overtime that they might not have deserved, given that they were a first-year expansion team in Taylor Field, but it was fun to watch.
It doesn't happen very often at all that you make it down to the kickoff.
Just kicking back and forth.
Yeah, until one team gets a point or one team actually runs it in. Yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah. Oh.
And it's beautiful because it's the players playing the game and the coaches staying out of the way. As much as coaches do a lot of great things, sometimes it's just fun to watch the players go crazy.
Yeah. It's like when
Bingo.
parents just step away and let their kids just do whatever they want because they're so tired of dealing with their...
Mhm.
It's like, if you figure it out, I'm out. But Joe, outside of sports, what does a non-working day of Joe Pritchard's look like?
Well, mostly doing that, letting the 6-year-old go crazy and just hoping he doesn't, hurt himself. No, that's it. I mean, what we're doing. I mean, you work the work day. You have family time. You get other interests involved too, and get the grill out. But by that time, you're pretty tired, right?
That's fair.
Then it's time to turn the game on, right?
Well, exactly. Shotgun Sports for fans, from fans, and we all have families and lives as well. So, once again, really appreciate you being on today. We'll let you go here right away, but what's your plans for the rest of the summer? Are you doing any CFL trips? 4th of July plans? What's the deal, Joe?
Probably going to be a low-key weekend this week, given that we're working Friday. But I'm probably going to Banjo Bowl. 95% confirmed on that. I just haven't bought the plane tickets yet. And then Grey Cup. So it'll be the first year in a couple I don't have 3 trips. I only have 2. What can you do? Sometimes you have to go non-Canada places, otherwise the wife gets a little bit displeased with that.
That's what I was going to mention. Usually people try to stay away from Canada or, like Canadians are traveling outside of Canada. So it's weird hearing people traveling into Canada for their vacations a lot of the time. Usually it's the other way around.
Yeah, and it's, we want to go to Seattle? Well, let's add Vancouver for a couple days.
Yeah.
You said Niagara Falls? How far is that from Hamilton? I mean, that's a question people normally ask, right?
Oh, trust me, we did the exact same thing because she wants to go to, the family wants to go to Niagara Falls. So we're going to try to line it up with the Hamilton Tiger Cats and I think probably just in general a Hamilton Tiger Cats game, but hopefully Elks, preferred Elks. So
do yourself a favor on that, though. Don't stay in Niagara Falls. Stay outside of it if you like a little small town feel, the little tourist town type of feel, instead of just being thrown into a tourist trap. Niagara on the Lake is a beautiful place to go.
Yes.
I'll have to remember that.
Very true. Oh, I see that we have Leanne in the Herd chat. Hello, Leanne. Do we have any other major questions in the Herd chat? The Elks ownership one might be a little bit loaded, but let's see.
There was one over here. Oh, that is also loaded, but John did ask it right at the beginning of our interview here. Do you think the new owners should change the Elks name?
No, just leave it be at this point. You're starting to build something with it. Making another change is going to signal that you're unstable. That's exactly what you don't want to tell the market that has kind of bled fans left and right. Don't tell them you're unstable. Just go, okay, here's who we are. Took us a while to figure out how to make this identity work, but this is who we are. Took us a while to get the players in place, the coaches in place, but we're here. Let's go.
You know what? I agree. I agree with that. I hadn't thought about that, of how, going back and forth between changes, especially big changes, because we're talking money. We're talking
lots of money.
It's a big thing too.
Yeah, you've already got the fan base invested in the new gear. Don't make them do it again, for one. Right. For two, it's just bad timing that the product and the field started to go sour at the same time that the name change happened. They did not. They don't match. It doesn't. Yeah, one doesn't mean the other.
Yeah, and we have seen it quite a bit. That people, especially with the news of the new ownership, that's just bringing up this conversation once again. Even though, as Chris has said it over here, it's been 3.5 years. It's more than enough time, and it's But that's the thing, right? The Elks are about to go through another big change,
Yeah.
big historical change, and of course that's bound to ruffle more feathers and bring conversation points that we all thought had been closed. But I really like your point on that. I like your take. You don't want to seem unstable. Nobody likes the crazy ones. So just commit and own it, you know?
Yeah, at this point, that's who you are.
Hmm.
Winning will solve a lot of problems, and that's going to happen soon.
That's exactly it. The team needs to win. The team needs to associate wins with the name Edmonton Elks. Winning solves everything. Take a look at the Winnipeg Blue Bombers selling out their stadium, as recent as late last year.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, it does need to stop. Unfortunately, it is getting a lot louder now. We will see who the new ownership is. Unfortunately, we do not have that information
So
yet.
rumors still.
Just like Leanne in the Herd chat here, the problem existed long before the name change. Please stop beating this dead horse.
You know, if you're a fan, you're a fan, regardless of what the name may be.
Yeah. No, and we'll leave that stuff for the toxic groups on Facebook. But that is all the time we have for the More You Didn't Know with Joe. Man, we cannot thank you enough for joining our show today. Where can people find your show and yourself online?
Well, I mean, if you're finding this on YouTube, well, just keep clicking through Shotgun Sports. You'll find us. You can also find the Winnipeg Terminal the same way. You could find both the Rouge, White, and Blue and the Winnipeg Terminal on your favorite podcatcher. I think we're on most of them, if not all. And then you can find me mostly on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it tomorrow. USFL Tecmo, or just search my name or search Rouge, White, and Blue. We're also there. You'll find me one way or the other.
See, everybody uses X, no problem. People have moved on from the Twitter names, so yeah, like he said, you can actually find both shows on Shotgun Sports Network. Thrilled to have you guys on the network, especially Rouge, White, and Blue as well. You guys have a long-standing show, so it's cool to see you guys through on the first season on our network on stream. So.
And on video, I thought that would cost us most of our listenership, but that hasn't happened yet.
No. People still like your faces. It's you guys are, like I said, you guys are number 2 on the streams on video. So
see, I love it. I love seeing people's faces. You know, whenever I have meetings at my regular 9 to 5 and nobody wants to put their camera on, it's like, what? No, no. Let me see what you look like, and then that way we know. You know, you can put 2 and 2 together, and that's.
I mean, when we first started with the Rouge, White, and Blue in 2015, we were using Skype.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've come a long way.
We have. It was Zoom took over for a while, and now we have platforms dedicated to this. It is amazing. Okay, Joe, we'll let you go, man. But thanks again for joining us, and we will talk again soon, my man. We'll check in a bit.
Thank you, Joe.
We sure will. Bombers play the Elks quite often, so you know where to find me.
We might be doing this again soon.
That's great. Have a good night, Joe.
Have a good night, man. Cheers. So that was Joe Pritchard of Rouge, White, and Blue and the Winnipeg Terminal podcast. Big shout out to Joe for joining us tonight. Also, a big shout out to you, the viewer, for tuning in tonight. You are watching the Elks Call with the Elks Herd here on Shotgun Sports Network. If you could hit the thumbs up and give us a like and a subscribe while we're at it, we would greatly appreciate it. Drive to 500. Still trying to give away a double E signature jersey circa 2017. 2016, 2017. We're still trying to give it away. 500 subscribers, and we will. Next up, we have Kathy's Herd Report, where Kathy brings you the latest Edmonton Elks news and transactions. The Herd Report is brought to you by Off the Reins Podcast. The Birmingham Stallions have completed the three-peat, and Ryan Messer has all of your media for that. find Off the Reins. Actually, find them every week. However, Off the Reins is actually moving over to the Forge. So Ryan Messer will be doing all Birmingham coverage for the city. So stay tuned to Shotgun Sports Network for that.
Mm-hmm.
Very exciting. Kathy, what's the herd report? What do we got?
Let's talk about the Elks. Let's talk about that last game. Let's do the game recap. On June 27th, the Edmonton Elks faced the BC Lions at BC Place, ending the game with yet another field goal win by the BC Lions, ending at 24-21. And I mean, before we get into it, like seriously, at what point is close enough not enough? You know? It really sucks that, well, this is, I mean, and we talked about this with Joe. It is not the same Owen Four start like we saw the last year, right?
Yeah.
But once again, it is still an 0-4 start, regardless. And I feel like I could have copied my notes from the last game, from the Argonauts game, and just, really to save me time and effort, because I do feel like there were a lot of parallels and a lot of similarities in the way that they played versus Toronto and BC.
Well, except for the fact that you didn't see that MBT like you saw in Toronto.
True,
right?
and I mean, he's comfortable in that field, right? He came from Toronto, so there was probably some sort of familiarity. There was some confidence in their comfort, whatever you may call it, that perhaps changed a little bit of his game. But I mean, at the start of the game, Edmonton opened the scoring with a Rouge on their first possession. So you always like to see that. How fun. And BC followed with a fumble snap, which gave the Elks a good field position. They, of course, took advantage of this and turned it into 3 points to get the game started. So, you started to get a little bit of momentum. And right going into that second quarter, Bethel Thompson had a long drive, and he threw over the top of BC's defense to Dylan Mitchell, who had himself a pretty good game. Connected with Arkell Smith, and he continued to stretch that drive with another first down. So we saw that a lot on that second quarter of really long drives, getting the ball moving. The Elks took the lead after this with a Gittins Jr. touchdown and a Boris Beatty extra point. Right after that, Jake Julian brought us another extra point. He had his 55-yard punt, but still, the defense could not stop Adams Jr. from completing a series of short passes that brought BC right into the Elks territory. They allowed White to set up the second half of the game by completing a field goal right at the end of that quarter.
Well, and here's the frustrating thing about it as well, right? Is it seemed like it was the midfield in the middle of the defense. The linebackers were either out of position or just it was a completely missed man. You saw a lot of those types of completions, not extreme long bombs. That one, I forget the player that was fired. Well, we were watching the game. We were doing the watch party, right? Eberhardt. He was absolutely slaying us. So
he was having himself a game for sure.
But in that first half, it didn't look like the Edmonton Elks were necessarily a bad team.
Yeah,
didn't look like they were a bad team.
They had a little bit of momentum. They were doing some really long drives. The defense wasn't too long on the field for that. They were doing their thing. It just didn't seem to get as far as we wanted to. And then the third quarter came, which it was nothing. It was just, punts back and forth, really, during that third quarter. It started super slow. Not a single score on that third quarter.
Yeah.
Everybody was just waiting to see if MBT would perhaps start doing some of those long throws, to move the ball down the field. But alas, we just continued to see those short passes and Kevin Brown not really being able to move much during these drives once again.
Yeah, I mean the run is once again invisible. I think I want to see what I want to say there was around 60 or 80 yards. It was I think it was 60. So you didn't see him running much.
No.
I want to say he actually made a bigger impact on some of his catches rather than his actual runs, right?
Yeah, we
So
did see a couple of those for sure.
so we're still struggling as an offensive unit to get Kevin Brown moving. Okay, that's very frustrating. As well, the lack of chemistry with Gino Lewis. And I think I'm going to peg this down as lack of chemistry at this point. Because we saw a lot of passes in that first game. Bring it all the way down to game 4. We're not seeing the most amount of targets. Gino is once again a 90-10 guy. In a 50-50 ball, he's a 90-10.
Yeah, but he's not being utilized as that. I mean, we see that happening with Dylan Mitchell, and Dylan Mitchell is picking up.
Dylan Mitchell has led, I think, the team in
100%.
targets and yards.
He had himself a couple of
multiple games.
Rough starts, you know. Yep. The first couple of games, there were a few missed catches. There were some issues there, but he kind of turned it around and he made that. He made himself own that position that he's in, which makes sense why MBT is throwing to him. But at the same time, and we talked about this in the last couple of games, why are we paying Gino Lewis so much to just sit on the sidelines, catch short passes, and not being able to move that ball when you know that he can catch those, like you say, it's a 90-10, right, of those long throws.
He is the best receiver on the team. Don't tell yourself otherwise, right? Props to Dylan Mitchell right now for looking like the best receiver on the team. But it does make you wonder what is going on between those two when you should have your most expensive player on the team passing to the most expensive wide receiver in the league.
Yeah.
This needs to happen. You pay Gino Lewis, and hey, maybe you're paying Gino Lewis right now to be a two-body distractor. Maybe he's out there pulling two bodies the whole time, and maybe that's why the team is getting some of those better reads on or better plays for Dylan Mitchell.
Yeah, because maybe everybody's expecting that.
Because they're going to Gino Lewis, right? So that could be a thing. But as if Gino Lewis doesn't want the ball.
Oh,
as if that's ever been his strategy before.
I don't know if you saw that particular moment during the last game.
Yes.
He seems frustrated, very frustrated. And it does definitely make you wonder if there's some sort of lack of chemistry between him and MBT that is causing some issues and not, allowing for certain plays to happen.
Totally.
But getting back to the game, on the fourth quarter, we got very lucky, not even just a little bit lucky, when Mackey fumbled that ball just yards away from the end zone. That gave the ball back to the Elks, and we definitely needed that. Bethel Thompson completed 5 passes on that drive just to set up 2nd and goal from the 1-yard line. And Prukop, once again, he punched it in to give Edmonton an 18-13 score. This was an 8-play, 76-yard drive, and it did end culminating in Dakota Prukov's 4th rushing touchdown of the season. But this is the frustrating part. You know why the score only went up by 6? Because a failed 2-point conversion. Was that the right move? Should we have just gone for the 1 extra point instead of trying to go for the 2-point conversion? And on that point, if you're going to go for the 2-point conversion and miss it, at least stop the other team from completing a 2-point conversion, really, which they didn't on the next drive.
Right.
So, what are your thoughts on that? Should they have just kicked it?
It's tough to say, right? I know what they were doing. In my opinion, I think you go for the easy points while you're there, because it's not going to make that much of a difference, right? Because as we saw later on, could have been the 1 point could have been a little bit of a game breaker if you get, because at that point now, instead of just needing a field goal, now you need a touchdown if they were in a tying scenario, right? Also, even speaking about the Gino scenario here, Leanne in the Herd chat, is it lack of chemistry or is it the offensive coordinator making the call?
True.
Which I hate.
Very true.
That's very true. J-Jack knows what he's doing, right?
You would hope so.
You would hope so. And once again, that goes to show maybe they're liking Gino as the distractor, right? That could very well be a thing. Maybe they're looking to move the ball around, and we're going to talk about that in article that's coming out on Shotgun Sports Network. We do kind of break that down a little bit, especially with it being 0-4 right now, but a very close 0-4.
No,
you know, the Gino and MBT relationship still, like, it's very, very early on in the season. We'll put it that way.
We don't know. Maybe they're best of friends, and that's just the point. Maybe it's just a call from the OC or the offense coordinator making the call, right? We don't know. We can just speculate by what we see on the field, by what we know the strengths of the players are, what we have seen before. And it's a really big question mark when you don't see Gino Lewis doing the types of plays that he was doing last year and that he was so successful at.
Well, and the biggest reason why I question that as well is because we saw the targets in the first game. We saw the targets in even first preseason game. But then things have started to drop off. And we know that there was obviously some bad catches. Gino ended up accidentally fumbling that after a miscatch, right?
But Dylan Mitchell did the exact same thing.
Mitchell did the exact same thing. So it's tough to say. And then obviously the frustration on the sidelines as well. I do think that like it is missing that extra step.
Yeah.
But
we'll see. Maybe things just need to kind of fall into place. I definitely do believe that this bye week came at a really, really, really
very
good time. But just to finish it up, that fourth quarter, and really feel like our fourth quarter now, it's last year's third quarter, the same issues that we were seeing, and whether it was time management or a badly timed pass interference penalty, or even setting up Beatty for a game-tying field goal with still 1 minute and 11 seconds left on the clock, are those smart things to do? Did they even try to go for it at this point? Do they go for a touchdown, run the clock, and just not give them a chance to take it back? Instead, they took that field goal, gave them enough time to bring it back, and for them to win it.
Well, and that's the other controversial part of this game, right? Do you go for it? Do you go for it on the third down? Do you try to go for touchdown, or do you get the instant points now? I say you go for touchdown. And that's once again, right? It's
kind of like a Hail Mary, especially when you have time on the clock that you know that they could just run it back. Our defense is tired at this point. They're not putting their best effort. You can see it, that they're just letting them go through. They're not stopping the run. Why are you giving them all that time to take it back?
Well, and then on top of that, you have the critical moments. You have the critical drives. Once again, going to be talking about it in that article. It's when it comes down to that critical last drive, and the defense has to make that stop. And Niles Morgan, as good as he was in that game, he was a top performer in the game, except for the fact that he had a critical penalty.
Horrible face mask penalty.
And people are going to say, oh, well, penalties are part of the game. But when you're getting 6 to 8 to 10 penalties every single game, and those penalties are coming at critical times, it's once again 4 penalties in that one game. But it was the critical timing of the penalties that made it a problem.
And stupid penalties too, which brings us to the bad. You already talked about that face mask penalty. It gave BC 15 yards of field position at that time, which was just a really bad move. The worst penalty that you could get at the worst possible time. But then you also have, the after the whistle penalties.
Yeah.
Aubrey Miller
almost got in trouble, which John was actually asking about that one in the Herd chat. That Aubrey Miller, what do you think of that? I mean, it happens, right? Players get all frustrated and they get all heated, and then they want to do stupid things. And maybe somebody said that that player that Aubrey was talking to obviously said something, or he didn't like the touchdown or whatever, right? It doesn't matter. it's undisciplined play.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, Chris
Mhm.
Jones's teams have a bit of a trait to be undisciplined at times. This is coachable. You can still fix this. Chris Jones, and it's not like Chris Jones is stupid. He's the head coach. I'm not a head coach. I'm never going to be the head coach of, let's say, a professional football team, maybe a kids junior team one day.
Yeah.
But Chris Jones has gotten himself to this point because he is a credible coach. He does know that the penalties have to be cleaned up.
Yeah.
But what do you do now if you're Chris Jones to clean up those penalties? That's it.
And
Bye week comes at a good
he's
time.
still a coach, right? So he still has to act like a coach. I don't think his reaction was offhanded. He was mad. Everybody was mad.
He should be mad
He
with
should
how
be.
much this team takes penalties. Chris Jones should be pissed.
Like,
I'm sorry, Mom.
listen, there's a difference between a penalty that happens in game as your, you can call it an accidental penalty, something that might have been not necessarily done on purpose, but it still happened because that was just the momentum of the player. And there's another thing that is after the whistle ends and you let your anger get to you, or you let your frustrations or whoever is talking smack at you get to you, and you cause another penalty after the whistle. Like, that's just stupid penalties that, in my opinion, should not happen.
You can't do
Right?
that.
And when you are playing a game this close with a really good contender that you may not know whether you have a chance of beating, but suddenly you are in a position of beating, and I've said it before, you play the cleanest game that you possibly can, because you're not going to give them any chances to take that and turn it around on you.
Yeah.
Right? So when you see the end goal and when you see that you're playing competitive football against one of the top contenders, and you see that there's an opportunity for you to win this, you do not let your anger get to you. You do not get penalties after the whistle. That's just it.
No, you got to get it together. You got to it's part of that defense, shut it down, just like we were talking about.
Mhm.
You have to have that shut it down mentality as a team. And when it comes to the game of inches or the game of feet, however you want to put this, with something like a Niles Morgan piled on with all of the other penalties that they took, piled on with the interception, because people always say, like, oh, well, it's not on MBT for throwing that one interception. No, but it is a part of the problem here. I would say the penalties were a bigger factor once again.
I mean, the BC Lions didn't bring their A game.
No.
They had drop passes, they missed a tackle, they had a bad fumble in there. They also had dumb penalties. Like, there was no reason for us to match that. Was that the only reason why we came that close? And that shouldn't be it. It should be because of good football. And I mean, the defense didn't show up. They couldn't stop the run, and there were some missed opportunities that we saw to sack Adams Jr. that he was just completely open, and we were like, why are you not trying to get him? And they just didn't take those opportunities. In BC, of course, they also did a good job at covering the Elks and finding the holes in the middle of the field. And, the linebackers, again, need to be a little bit better outside of just number 45.
Yeah, and number 45, Niles Morgan, did fantastic. But even Niles Morgan is human and took that,
of course,
that game sealing penalty, right? It's frustrating. It's very, very frustrating knowing that you're that close, but yet it's still an 0-4. So
yeah,
I think the bye week, once again, right? It comes at a good time.
Comes at a good time. There were some good things in there. Kai Gray had a good game. He had the really impressive helmet to the ball tackle. So that was a fun one to watch. Purifoy, he ensured that no completions were happening on his watch. Of course, Dylan Mitchell. He sits second in the CFL right now in receiving yards with 355.
Yeah.
Niles Morgan, as we talked about, he racked up the tackles. He added 12 more this season, in this game, just alone, to total his season for 28. So,
nice.
Couple of other really good things. Ball security didn't seem to be an issue this game. And once again, the game was winnable.
Yeah, winnable game. Definitely a winnable game. Next up, we have July 14th. here at Commonwealth Stadium. Oh, yeah, I skipped ahead, but
Yeah.
yeah.
It is Commonwealth Stadium versus Ottawa Red Blacks, and it is Dino Day.
And we need to win that one. What do you got for transactions?
We do. We just signed in the supplemental draft wide receiver Zach Mathis.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it. There's some speculations. There are some other names being thrown around. There's nothing yet written in goal.
From what I saw, Sean Oakman, that's basically we'll say 99%.
Mm-hmm.
There's a 99% chance that Sean Oakman is an Edmonton Elk. Huge. If we get Sean Oakman, we've said the name on the show. It's hilarious because I just listened to some of Ray and Benny talk sports before we jumped on this. Another Winnipeg podcast. Our friends over at the Crater Co-op. Yeah, so I was listening to theirs. They were also talking about Sean Oakman because obviously Sean Oakman. Like, have you seen the crazy football mask? Like
yeah, I've seen it.
The gold one. That's Sean Oakman from Baylor in his Baylor days in college football. Yeah, he's the scary guy. Yeah. Oh, 6'7" tall, possibly. Oh, wingspan as a receiver. Whoa, who are we talking about here?
Oh, it's Zach Mathis.
Oh, Zach Mathis. Yes.
This is who we're talking. Will Jefferson Wingspan. Yeah.
Well. Okay, so here's what's interesting about the Zach Mathis pick. So that supplemental draft, we lose our first round draft pick next year. Curtis Rourke, Nathan Rourke's brother, could have been depending on where we landed.
Interesting.
Could have been going in that top 3, if not first overall.
Oh, geez.
And depending on how the Edmonton Elks do, they're obviously banking on this team doing better this year and not getting that first overall pick. Because I would assume that Curtis Rourke goes 1, 2, or 3.
How do you live in the shadow of Nathan Rourke?
Curtis O'Rourke coming to the CFL next year. But yeah, so Zach Mathis, we went ahead and we lost our draft pick for next year because we wanted this guy.
Right.
So very, very promising, like Chris Agar said in the chat.
6'7" tall. Jeez. Yeah, that is a tall boy. Right there.
Yeah.
So hopefully it is a good one. I did see another global pig, but it hasn't been announced yet. It was just, we'll see, from Japan. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. As for injuries, Michael Broderick, linebacker, he's out with a groin injury. Thomas Jack Cordula, O-line, out with a knee injury, and Hergy Mayala still out with a hamstring injury. So hopefully it's a bye week, so we'll see how that looks coming closer to the game.
I like what Chris Agar said here in the Herd chat. If Rourke is pursuing the NFL as much as his brother Nathan, then do we want him for a one and done like BC had? I don't think so. And I was thinking that as I was saying it. I was like, but here's the thing. If you get a Curtis Rourke, a Nathan Rourke type, it's a one and done.
Yeah.
Like,
do we...
Is it a good fit for the though? Oh, we scared Luna. We got so excited.
But we even had talks about that when Trey Ford did his debut.
Yeah.
Right? That is he going to be the next Nathan Rourke? Is he going to be the next one to go to the NFL next year? Is he going to be trying out for the NFL this year? Right? So, I mean, just because Nathan Rourke has that kind of pedigree doesn't necessarily mean that his brother does as well. So
I think his brother is actually pretty good from what I know. Yeah. He's been doing all right. I don't know if he's putting up necessarily
the same
Nathan Rourke numbers, but he still obviously holds a good name, and he's still going to be able to produce on the football field. So very, very interesting. Very interesting, right? We'll see what happens. But yes, we have July 14th will be right around the corner. Stall 182. Can't wait. We're going to tell you more about that in the Edmonton Sports Update. Today's sports update is brought to you by Herdy's. Slide into summer with us at Stall 182 on July 14th as we bring you smoked sliders fresh from our smokehouse. Made with 100% bird of beef, we slide this meat between two buns with your condiments of choice. Don't you know? Pump it up. Herdy's, we smoke the meats.
What's wrong with you?
The IFAF U20 Football World Cup has come and gone, with Team Canada achieving a three-peat championship win on June 30th. Stay tuned to Shotgun Sports Network for our exclusive media from the big event. Also, check out royalretros.com for the merch. Your Edmonton Elks are currently on a bye week. They host the Ottawa Redblacks next week on Sunday, July 14th. Kickoff is at 5 p.m. Mountain for Dino Day. The Edmonton Oilers have signed multiple big names in free agency, including Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson. The team is looking to run it back after a devastating Game 7 Stanley Cup loss to the Florida Panthers to end their 2024 season. In the CEBL, the 9-3 Edmonton Stingers are facing the Winnipeg Sea Bears. And unfortunately, they lost with a score of 102 to 101. But this Friday, there's going to be a 3-game homestand against the Vancouver Bandits, Sunday against Brampton Honey Badgers, then Tuesday against the Calgary Surge. All games have a 7 p.m. time for tip-off at the Edmonton Expo Center. The Edmonton Riverhawks have sold out Remax Field for the first time on Canada Day, posting an attendance of over 9,000. Congratulations to the Riverhawks on such a big achievement and for saving such an iconic ballpark. Be sure to check Riverhawks and Stingers games live on Edmonton Sports Talk if you can't make it to the game in person. For more on the Edmonton sports scene, check out our weekly sports articles on shotgunsportsnetwork.ca, which includes great local coverage by ourselves, friends, and Len Noons. We're the Elks Herd. You're up to date. For our affiliates, we would like to thank you for supporting the network by checking out our affiliates. You can find all of our affiliates in the description. We are a self-funded media company at Shotgun Sports Network, after all, so we thank you for shopping with Shotgun. Luna's about to do some sound effects here. So as we know, Royal Retros, we've talked about it a couple times tonight, royalretros.com, king of the throwbacks. Team Canada IFAF jerseys and merchandise can be found exclusively at Royal Retros. Mm-hmm. What are the odds? We happen to have a code with Royal Retros before this event even happened, so it is fate. This is fate. Check out royalretros.com. Go check out the IFAF merchandise. Use code Shotgun Sports, all caps, no spaces. Mm-hmm. And then Fanatics. We all know Fanatics. If you shop over at Fanatics, we use our link. Use our link. We don't quite have a special discount over there, but they always have something on sale. So check out our link. Shop with Shotgun with Fanatics. Lather. Canadian handmade soap. Guys, it has been 4 to 4.5 months of using this deodorant. I still have not been through one whole stick. I swear I'm not a disgusting person. The deodorant lasts forever. I don't know what to tell you.
You just don't use it.
I'm not gross. I don't smell bad. I slather it on. I'll make sure it's like, yeah, we're going to get too descriptive with it now. So yes, I do use it. 20% off though. If you want 20% off, code Shotgun Sports, all caps, no space. Oh, Shotgun Sports 20. Mm-hmm. Make sure you get the 20 on there. Shotgun Sports 20, all caps, no spaces. 20% off. They've been updating their scents over there. Soaps, shampoo, conditioner, man stuff. It's all there. Man stuff. It's all over there. Smell damn good with Shotgun. Use code Shotgun Sports 20 upon checkout. All right. time for the last segment of the show.
Mhm.
Let's open it up. Let's open up today's fan forum, which is brought to you by the Rouge, White, and Blue podcast. Americans talking Canadian football. Oz and Joe can now be seen on Shotgun Sports Network, bringing their audibles to your screens. Everyone's favorite point, white and blue. So let's open up this fan forum. In this segment, we talk about hot topics surrounding the Edmonton Elks and the CFL as a whole. Blow up the herd chat so we can get your comments onto the show. We are not going to do question number 1 today. We are going to go with question number 2.
Okay. Oh, my.
Oh, so it was weird because like usually you take care of when we do the interviews. That's so funny. That was a good slip. Okay, so we're gonna go with question number 2 today. We are running a little bit over on time because we had a really good chat with Joe. At the same time, we like this question coming right at you.
Mm-hmm.
At Owen Four, we knew the Edmonton Elks would be making some changes. According to reports, Sean Oakman is finally coming to Edmonton after too many months of speculation. Will we see more changes, and are these changes enough for this team to break this winless streak?
I don't know. I really don't know if we're going to be seeing more changes. Can we even afford more changes? Right? Like, what's the cap? What are we talking about here? Right?
Yeah, so because it was a bit of a topic this week. Is Chris Jones going to go? See, look, John in the herd chat here. One change: get rid of Chris Jones and get attendance back up. It's not that easy though. The wins need to come. You need to win.
Mm-hmm.
This team, you could throw as many sparkles and you could get Hansen back in here. You could get 50 Cent in here.
Mm-hmm.
You could get whoever. And at the end of the day, those fans aren't going to stay because there's no win. You bring the fans to the stadium for something like a big concert.
Mm-hmm.
They stay for the win. They stay
They
stay for the win, right? The team loses that night, you've lost all chance of bringing, most chance, let's say. You're going to bring around 80% chance of that person leaving with a loss. Maybe that changes to 50% if you get a win.
Yeah.
That person who already was never going to come back, all of a sudden is like, hey, maybe I'll come back. Or, somebody brings their kids, their family's all excited about it. Those people may buy tickets again. They're not going to be diving right into season tickets. That's the other thing. You have to ease people into the league.
Mm-hmm.
You have to ease people into the sport. So that's just with the attendance issue, right? Getting back to the actual question, will we see more changes? Well, Sean Oakman, that is if once again
we need it.
Yeah.
Defense needs it.
Well, Kem Dietschy's been doing all right, but when you keep throwing down dumb penalties, when you keep on screwing up and making those little errors, it's kind of also nice too to have somebody else on D-line to add some accountability, right? Maybe sit some guys, make a guy sit for a couple plays.
Yeah, when you have somebody that has a little bit more of a better pedigree, let's say, that some of the newer guys that are in, then you're able to kind of swap them and see that. But I do think that the addition of Sean Oakman is a good one. We definitely need the help. The D line needs the help. We keep seeing it over and over that we're not able to stop that run. MBT is struggling with some of those passes, whether it is because he's rushed or whether because he's not really confident.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But I mean, that's more of the O-line. But what I'm talking about is we definitely need a little bit more help. And maybe that's just my wishful thinking that we would have something else being added to that O-line to help MBT as I'm talking that through.
Well, but the O-line were actually top performers.
I know, but at the same time, it's like it's leaky.
Yeah.
And we saw it in the first couple of games too. We kept going back between, it's the O-line, it's the D-line, in this game is the offense that is not doing their job. In this other game, it's the defense that is not doing their job. right? There's no consistency. There is no, and if we're gonna see some changes that are solid and are definitely gonna make some solid effect on the team, it should be things like this. If Sean Oakman is going to be a solid addition and change to the D line,
Yeah.
then I would hope to see another change like that. That would be a really good addition for the O line as well.
Yep. Well, and the O line, like, yeah, it has been hot and cold. Same deal with MBT. He's been hot and cold. The defense, once again, right? Same deal. They've been hot and cold. For the most part, the defense has been good, but then you take a look at the defensive line. Defensive line has been bad. Then all of a sudden your secondary is looking bad. Then all of, it kind of moves around. Game to game. It's consistency is key. I saw that Chris Agard mentioned it earlier in the herd chat. Consistency is key. This team needs to find that winning culture. Changes though, if you make more changes now, and especially, what are you gonna do? These people that are saying, like, yeah, fire Chris Jones. What are you gonna do?
No, if we're talking about changes mid-season, it would be changes to the roster.
Yeah,
right. It would be changes to the players. It would be changing that, but you don't. It would be a horrible idea to make big changes like coaching changes in the middle of the season.
Well, and especially too, you'd have to move G-Roy over to GM. Yeah. You'd have to promote Jason Shivers, who just started as defensive coordinator. So he's thrusted into a position that's not necessarily that great for him. It's you would make an absolute mess of things to get rid of Chris Jones now, and on top of that, if you wanted to bring in anybody else, like an interim head coach, it's going to go against that coaching cap, which we know is maxed out right now.
Right.
There's no way it's not maxed out right now. So nice, John. Get the coach from Team Canada's under 20. When you're playing junior high flying 4-down football, things are a little bit different. Those guys all had like a week or two to prep. I mean, the 110. I know that the 110 looked good. I
don't want to talk about that.
No, but speaking of wins though, like, which is what we need until like Leanne said here in the herd chat, until they get some wins, I'll be watching from home. It's less expensive than driving the 90 minutes, and we skip the concession and bathroom lineups.
It's fair.
Here's what people aren't considering when they believe that this is like an easy problem to solve. People have given up their season tickets from like Slave Lake. People have given their season tickets up from Athabasca or from even Red Deer.
People that were driving for hours
Camrose.
To come see these
exactly.
games.
I actually know, like in it's either in Valley View or it's in Slave Lake, I want to say. I know season ticket holders that I'm pretty sure I've ran into at least once. I forget the guy's name, but we started talking about Edmonton Eskimos like 2014, 2015, I think. So, it's more than just Edmonton. This is Northern Alberta's CFL team. People in Fort McMurray, I know of diehards. I know people that are diehard Edmonton Eskimos fans, Edmonton Elks fans. It's when the team loses all the time and you're just going to be disappointed at the end of the night. And I've been there. We've been there. If, all of these fans that still have their season tickets through this, they've all been here too, right? Casual fans, we've all been there. Fans watching from home, we've all been there. So when you go and you spend all that money to have a celebratory rah-rah, why are the Edmonton Oilers doing good? Well, they're winning. They made it all the way to the end. They're winning. That's why people... Riverhawks, well, when you go, you're going to have a good time, but there's at least a 50% chance you're going to get a win. That's great. Stingers, we just said 9-3. Now they're 9-4 after tonight. 9-4? That's a fantastic start to the season.
Yeah.
So that if you're going to go to a Stingers game, pretty good chance you're going to see a win and you get to celebrate after. And woo! That was fun, right, kids?
I mean, who wants to go anywhere and see a loss?
No.
That's just simple as that. You're not going to go out of your way, spend the gas money, spend the concession money. to go be disappointed. Simple as that.
But and I mean moral victories, right? I think we've said this a couple times, and I want to say the media said it a couple times. The moral victories don't matter anymore.
Mhm.
The win is what matters. So if you're not getting the win, it's just another red X. Now,
And that's the frustrating part with the last 4 games, right?
right there.
That you're right
Right
there, but
there.
it is still a loss.
So really, what would you change in this bye week? Let's bring it home.
What I would change.
What would you change in this bye week? Besides which, and we said this in the last episode, or 2 episodes ago, when we asked the Owen Four, what do you do? Like how do we? What do you do if the Elks go to 0-4? What do you do in the bye? Well, you can't change your coach. You're not going to mess around with your personnel, which Ticats did. Ticats got rid of their special teams, and they brought in a new special teams guy.
Yeah.
Right? But special teams is not our problem.
No. we thought they were in the first couple of games, but
It's discipline, consistency. Discipline, consistency, and it's no longer ball security.
Yes, that's what I would say. Discipline. Like whether it is
coachable.
Like it's the damn penalties. Those get to me because they accumulate if you have multiples of them, and they could really be the tipping point for the game, for the entire game.
Yeah.
Like what would have happened if there wasn't that face mask that gave the 15 yards to BC?
Shouldn't come down to that, but once again, right? You look at the other penalties though that extended drives to allow points, right? Like that's when you extend the drive and it allows some points. It doesn't matter if it's 3 or whatever. Sure, it should never come down to that Niles Morgan face mask. Those plays happen, should be expected or accounted for.
It just makes you wonder.
But it's still a coachable moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I like Leanne here. Hugs. These boys need some hugs. Not kidding. They need some love as much as discipline.
I was gonna say, let them just rest. Maybe go get some ice cream, get a good night's sleep, and come back rested and ready to go.
Well, and that's a really good reminder to everybody as well, right? It's the players on the field. If you think fans are frustrated about going 0-4, the players that entertain, that work their derrieres off, they're the ones that feel this the worst out of anybody. So, we don't ever specifically lambast any one player over, let's say one game or one play. Sure, if you're a top performer, great. If you were obviously committing some really bad penalties, then we're gonna make it known. But the one thing we will say is, keyboard warriors, for the love of God,
just stop.
Give yourself 24 hours before you want to go ahead and say this player is absolute garbage and this player needs to be fired right now and XYZ.
Everybody has their off day, and I definitely do agree. I mean, right now in this particular episode, I've been the biggest advocate for less penalties, but at the same time, we do understand that plays like that happen in the middle of the game and sometimes cannot be avoided. Sometimes players just have an off day. And I mentioned it before, a lot of those penalties are not even intentional, right? That's momentum of the player as they're falling or something happens.
It's like a high stick in hockey.
Exactly. Sometimes that just happens, and that is not an excuse to lambast a player for causing that, right? Definitely not. It happens. I mean, it's the stupid ones that really get me. The really dumb penalties that really, really, really get me. But once again, that's discipline, right? That is coaching. That is whatever that may be. Maybe they do need a hug. Maybe Chris Jones just needs to relax a little bit more too. Maybe he just needs to take, a weekend away and just relax a little bit, because if tensions are high everywhere, everybody in that team feels it, from upper management down to, everybody in the field. So hopefully they get some good rest and they come back a little bit stronger, because really that's all we need. Just a little bit more.
No, I agree. John here, we're going to close this out with John's question, this last one here. Why do you think people are fixated on a name change now that we're getting new owners? And this is going to be like the Jerry's final thought here, Hurdy's final thought. People are fixated on a name change because they want to run away from the fact that this team is losing. They I think in one hand people seriously believe that a name
They are
is
looking
going
for
to
something
change.
to blame.
It's a scapegoat.
It's
The name is a scapegoat at this point.
100%. They need to blame somebody, but because they cannot blame, I mean, they're already blaming somebody by calling for Chris Jones' head, but they have to blame something or someone, as you say, is a scapegoat.
Yeah.
And it's the dumbest thing
in
the world.
If the name ever did get changed back to Eskimos, I can tell you that the team loses a lot more sponsors.
I think
like the team loses more money.
Just like Joe said, I think personally I would lose respect for the organization.
Yeah.
A little bit more.
Yeah.
If they changed it back to Eskimos, I would lose a little bit more respect for the organization for not sticking to their guts, whatever that might be, for not committing to the change that they have, and just because they're letting just a whole bunch of keyboard warriors dictate what they should do with the organization. The product of the field has absolutely nothing to do with the name.
Nothing to do with the name.
Nothing.
Very coincidental that the team is having the worst years of its life. But like Leanne said earlier in the Herd chat, like she said earlier, this team was going to be losing right now no matter what. If the team was called Eskimos, they'd still be losing and sucking right now. Yep. It's just that fans would have one less thing to complain about.
Oh, well, of course. They wouldn't blame the name. They would just straight up blame Chris Jones. Or maybe they would blame, maybe the change of concessions. Maybe because they took away Popeyes from the concessions.
No, Popeyes is still there. Popeyes is still there. Popeyes is still there. I saw it.
Or something stupid like that, though. That they would pick at whatever it is that changed for the failure on the field, which has nothing to do with that. So, like I said, if it changes back, and that is going to be for personal reasons, because if whoever decides to buy the team, obviously has free reign to do whatever they want with the team at that point. And if they decide to bring back the name, of course, there's going to be a lot more people being happy about it, for sure. But hey, maybe you should check in with yourself a little bit better.
Well, we'll see what happens with it. And I mean, the ownership transition will be a big buckle up. I think this is going to get pretty crazy. It's exciting times if you're in.
Do you think they're going to announce it during the bye week? Or is it going to be after the season
I think everybody is entitled to their week off here. I think they're trying to give everybody like a complete week off. So if anything, I have no idea. Mm-hmm. I would assume that it happens. Yeah, I mean, at this rate, we're already halfway through the bye week, so more than likely within the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what paperwork is signed, finalized, XYZ, but whoever buys this team, they're going to have full rights to do whatever they want with the branding and the name. So while we may not be going back to Eskimos, there is talks, like obviously from 1440, Kevin Carius, who unfortunately has us blocked, but Kevin Carius for non-nefarious reasons, just because he's at the other guys at Sports 1440. Rather disappointing. But anyways, well, hey, I would like to actually be able to see these tweets, but we have John here in the Herd chat informing us of it, so that's good.
I'll add him in my personal.
There we go. Then that way we can actually get the updates from 1440, because after all, we're just an Elks fan hub to give everybody all of the resources we can possibly find on the internet on the Edmonton Elks. Yes, and exactly, John, you gave us the video on Twitter. But yeah, no. So anyways, so they're saying that a name change is still on the table with a new owner, right? With private ownership. So They are saying that the private owner is already looking at changing the name. No, people are fixated because obviously, bring back the Eskimos, which once again,
I'll tell you what. The name's gonna come back. The team may or may not keep losing, and that upper bowl is still gonna be empty. Because they're not gonna come back unless they start winning, regardless of what the name is.
Exactly, right? So let's say you go ahead. Let's say you go ahead and throw the old name back on, right? The game sells a bunch of tickets for one game, and then what? You're gonna stick around to watch the losing Eskimos still? It's like, no, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
So it is a subject that I really wish we were over and done with, and I hate the fact that we're still talking about it. 3.5 years of still talking about the same subject. And hey, you know what? Maybe Edmonton Elks, maybe they want to get rid of the name to get rid of the losing connotation, right? Bring in Edmonton Energy, bring in Edmonton Empire, just, do it. Just do Empire, like everybody thought we were going to.
Yeah.
And we would be okay. But apparently there's negative connotation with that. So we'll see what happens. That's why they didn't do Empire to begin with.
Oh my lord.
So it's the name doesn't help you win on the field, just like John said here in the herd chat. Doesn't matter what you call this team for the 15th, 16th, 20th, 100th time.
How about we don't talk about this again? Unless it actually
but
happens.
There may be
unless it actually happens. But let's
if we're really sparse,
squish it.
Okay, let's close the fan forum then. Thank you everybody for participating in tonight's fan forum. This was good. Got a little bit heated. Gonna step outside after this one, I think. Ladies and gentlemen, we have made it to the end of the show. This is fantastic. All the time we had for today, but holy, that was a great episode. We want to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in tonight on Shotgun Sports Network and on Facebook, which is at the Elks Herd, and on X. By the way, I noticed that we may not be getting our Facebook Facebook comments.
Interesting.
Like, is there? If you press all down here, yeah. Do we got anything under there? No. Interesting. Okay. But anyways, if you were listening, you are listening on TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Edmonton Sports Talk, or on your favorite podcatcher. By the way, we are now on. Oh, we see you, Nathan. We see you. If you are listening on Edmonton Sports Talk, it is now at 5:00 p.m. on Fridays. So yeah, should be fun stuff. But until then, it's going to be around 2 weeks before we see you all on the Elks Herd, on the Elks Call. Unfortunately, next week is going to be our bye week, so that's why we got you kind of prepped for the game coming up in a couple weeks. So Ottawa Red Blacks, hopefully a winnable game. We will see everybody at Stall 182 on July 14th. Thanks once again, everybody. My name is Scout, aka the Rep from Section X.
I'm Catherine, aka Do You Even Elks?
We are the Elks Herd. This was the Elks Call, and we'll see you on the next episode 2 weeks away. Cheers, everybody.
Have a good night.